Hi ladies. This week I chose to pick implementation as my standard to explain to you guys. I'll start off with the basic definition that they gave to us in this week's material, which is that professional learning that increases educator effectiveness and results for all students, applies research on change, and sustains support for implementation of professional learning for long-term change. So basically, what does that mean? Because that's kind of a hefty definition. The implementation part or standard is all about how you apply your knowledge to the students. I think this is one of the most important pieces of becoming a teacher. This is my future career. I plan on being a kindergarten teacher, and implementation will be key to success for me. Every child, every student is different, and therefore they learn different. And this is something that teachers really, even if you're not a teacher, any kind of educator, this is something that you really need to know and understand, because if you don't, you will be teaching students in a way that they don't understand or the way that they can't learn. And then your teaching is pointless because they're not learning from it. An example of this, in my current job, I'm a nanny for 3 boys, and 2 of the oldest boys are diagnosed with autism. So obviously my implementation strategies are very different from how my implementation strategies may be in my future classroom. When I have to teach them something or explain something to them, I obviously need to do it more carefully, slowly. I need to be very repetitive. I need to draw a picture for them, in a sense, have them repeat it back to me, make sure they are really understanding and communicating. And a lot of times they take in different kinds of information differently. For example, math, social studies, science. Some they do better with, some they don't. So I'm changing my implementation strategies on a daily basis, depending on how they're ready to learn that day. So this is something that I'll definitely be taking with me to my classroom. It will benefit me in the sense of how good of a teacher I can be, how successful I'll be, because if I'm able to use the implementation strategy positively and in the correct way, I'll be a very successful teacher, in the sense that I'll be teaching and actually educating my students in a way that is really enhancing their learning. For how the helpful behaviors that we could adopt now related to this standard, there's so many different ways. I know many of you have children, so one way you could adopt this standard now is, think about how you would implement education ideas, techniques. How would you implement them to your young child compared to how you would implement them in your job now? Maybe you're working with an older group of kids, or maybe you're working with adults, maybe, but think about how you would implement things differently. For example, if you're trying to teach your young child how to learn the ABCs, it's obviously going to be a very different strategy than how you're going to teach an adult or a teenager a new math problem. So that's an example. You can start practicing by practicing how you're implementing these ideas to your children in your workplace now, and then later you can compare that even to your future workplace. So you have your child, your workplace now, and then your future workplace, and you can compare all 3 of them, and you can see, because implementation is going to be different across the board depending on who you're teaching, where you're teaching, what you're teaching, etc. One other helpful behavior that we can adopt now is learning to, I think Samantha also mentioned, there's tons and tons and tons of professional development courses that you can take, and in these development courses they also do teach implementation. If you just look it up, you can find them. They can teach you a lot more about it, how you can, do stuff with it. So I would definitely recommend that too, especially if you're going into the teaching field, which I know quite a bit of us are. So, but please look into implementation and practice implementation, because I truly believe it is one of the most important pieces of being an educator, because without implementation and without being that key role model, that leader, the learning can't happen. Because without implementation, there is no learning. In order to learn, you have to implement the strategies, the techniques, and the ideas. So please, please look more into that. Even if you kind of only looked over your strategies this week, this is a big one I would really recommend going through and reading. And they had a great 10-minute video on it. Very useful and helpful. But yeah, so that's my strategy, and I look forward to hearing more about your guys's. Thank you.